What's happening, guys? Safety Liner C2 here. So I'm sure that you know that I do community posts once a week, and I've been doing that for a couple years now. I like to change what I'm posting on there, so last year I was doing stories, this year has been questions, and next year is going to be Battle of the Buses, which is exactly what I'm going to explain in this video. As you can see in this spreadsheet, I have created a knockout bracket type game, and we're going to put these buses head to head each week to see which one comes out on top. And this is going to last the entire year. Now here's how this is going to work. Each week on my community tab I will post a round from this spreadsheet. So the first round is going to be the Midbus 3800 versus the 95 to 06 EF. I'll post that on my community tab. I'll leave it up for a week, and whichever bus wins advances into the next round. So let's say by some miracle the 3800 wins. Then that will be paired with the Collins Ford for a later round in the future. Then the next week after our 3800 versus EF, we'll have the 03 to 07 FE versus the Carpenter Corsair. Again, I'll post that on my community tab. Whichever one gets more votes advances into the next round. Now here's how you can play along. So I'm going to link the spreadsheet down below, and after you download or create your own copy, you can fill out that spreadsheet based off of however you think people will vote each round. Then all you need to do is take a screenshot or picture or download this as a PDF and submit it in the form I have linked down below. And you have until January 5th, 2024 in order to fill this out and submit it to me, because our first community post and first round of this will be the next day, January 6th. Now, for your convenience, I also linked pictures so that if you're unfamiliar with one of these buses, you can just click on the link and see what it looks like. And please make sure whenever you're taking a picture or downloading it as a PDF that every single thing is in there so that I can see everything. Now, a couple things to note here. If you take a look at the spreadsheet, you will see that there are some red boxes in there. In order to make this last a whole year, I had to put in some contenders that initially would not compete in the first round, but would be in the second round. So if you take a look at that Collins Ford, the first one at the top, you'll see that it doesn't initially go up against anything and is automatically entered into the second round. Now there are 12 of those across the whole spreadsheet. Now if you take a look at the red boxes, you'll see that with a few exceptions, these are all current buses that are being made. To make it fair, I decided to put a Type A, a Type C, and an RE from each major manufacturer, and that does include the IC RE and the IC AE, even though those aren't in production. I just thought that would be fair. The other part is that there were 12 slots, obviously 3 major manufacturers times 3 buses each. That still leaves 3 slots open. So for the Type A, I went with Collins. For the Type D, I put the Green Power Beast, and for the Type C, I put the Lion C. Now if you're still a little confused about this, I'll write everything out in the description of this video, and I'm also going to be filling out my spreadsheet of what I think will win, and I'll do the whole process so that you can see everything that you need to do so that you can compete as well. And throughout the whole year, I'm going to be keeping track of everyone's submissions to see if anyone gets this 100% correct. If someone does, that'd be pretty cool. And of course, if you have any questions, you can let me know in the comments below, and I'll answer any and all questions that you have about this. So now let me tell you a little bit about this specific spreadsheet. So I started off with like a list of 130 buses, just whatever I could think of in like 5 minutes. I just typed it out. Now, this does not include every single bus that's ever been made. This is, like I said, just what I could think of in a couple minutes. So I know that there are some missing, but I think that this is still a pretty good list. Now, to figure out where on the spreadsheet I wanted to put everything, I then randomized that list a random number of times. I think it was 7. So now I had all of those buses in a completely random order, and then I used another random number generator to figure out what bus will go in which position. I started on the top, working my way down, alternating between the right and left columns, so that when these buses go head to head, if you will, it is a completely randomized list. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling mine out now, and I'll do a brief explanation as to why I think, what goes where. Now, filling out this spreadsheet, we can see that the first match is going to be between the Midbus 3800 and the 95 to 06 EF. Now, personally, between the two, I think that the EF is going to win when that's put up on a community post. So all I'm going to do is just write EF right there. Next, we have the 2003 to 7 ICFE versus the Carpenter Corsair. Now, as much as I love the Carpenter Corsair myself, I think that more people are going to choose the ICFE since it's a more recent bus and more people are familiar with that. The EC72 versus a Transtech on a GM chassis. I'm going to go with EC72 on that one. The Bluebird C60 versus the Thomas B700. I'm going to go with B700. A Minibird versus a Wayne Ford B800. I'm going to go B800 on that one. The Bluebird CV200 versus the Pegasus Valkyrie. I'm easily putting my money on the CV200. The TC2000 versus the StarCraft Dodge. This is an interesting one. I think some people are going to choose the StarCraft Dodge for the meme, but I think that there are a ton of people who are very familiar with the TC2000 and have ridden them or experienced them, so that's why I'm going to put the TC2000 winning that one. An Amtran Vanguard on a GM chassis versus a Bluebird Chevy B60. I think I'm going to go with the B60 on this one. A US bus on a GM chassis versus a Wayne Dodge. Both of these are kind of a weird choice, and this is exactly why I'm doing this. It's a very weird matchup that you wouldn't think. I'm going to go solely based off of the fact that the Wayne Dodge is a Type C. I'm going to put that one. A Gillig Coach versus a Super Coach 2. I think I'm going to go with the Super 2 on this one. Alright, working our way to the other side now. We have the Carpenter Counselor versus the BYD Achiever. If anyone puts the Achiever winning this one, then you are out of your mind. A 1980s Thomas ER versus a Thomas Chevy B60. I'm going to go with ER on this one. The Transtech E-Trans, a prototype, which is interesting, versus the Bluebird TC1000. Both of these are kind of in the same market almost. They were definitely different, but again, I think more people are familiar with the TC1000, and the E-Trans was a very, very weird prototype. So I'm going with TC1000 on this one. A Wayne Ford Busette versus the Pegasus Zeus. I think that because the Zeus is still a prototype and we still haven't seen a complete bus, I'm going to go with the Busette on this one. A Bluebird 3800 versus a Corbe 3800, and it's pretty simple. Everyone in the US is going to vote for Bluebird, and everyone in Canada is going to vote for the Corbe, so I'm putting my money on the Bluebird. A Bluebird SBCV versus a Bluebird Lodestar. I think that the SBCV is going to absolutely destroy the Lodestar. A Wayne Lodestar versus a Carpenter B60. This is another one where I'm not really sure which way that this specific one is going to lean. I'm going to put my money on the Lodestar just because it's a international. A 2007 through 2011 EF versus a Bluebird MB2. And because there isn't a chassis on this one, we will use a random number generator to figure out what chassis we're putting on there. We'll say that evens are Ford and odds are GM, and we'll use this same method for the couple others that we need to fill in. Alright, so 10, it looks like we are on a Ford chassis for that MB2. Now, I really don't think it made a difference whether the MB2 would be on a Ford or GM chassis, so I'm going to go with the EF on this one. A second gen CE versus a superior Chevy B60. Obviously, we know which one's going to win here. Now, one thing of note, I did switch the chassis between the Superior and the Wayne directly below it. I initially had the Superior being a C60 and the Wayne being a B60, but then I realized, oh wait, the Superior really didn't have many C60s, if any, so I just switched those. Anyways, back to the second gen CE versus the Superior B60. The second gen CE, that's an obvious one right there. And the last one in the first round, the Wayne C60 versus a 90s Bluebird All-American RE. I'm going to go with the All-American on this one. So now we'll do the same thing with the second round right here. Again, right here we don't have a chassis, so evens are Ford, odds are GM. It looks like even, so we're going to go Ford. And remember, this G5 did not initially compete in the first round, but it is still going into the second round. So 90s All-American RE versus a Bluebird Ford Microbird G5. I'm going to go with the All-American on this one again. Now this one right here, I did not mean for this to happen again. This was all randomly generated, but we have the second gen CE versus the third gen CE. Now I have seen more people come around to the third gen CE now that more pictures have been posted and more people have seen it. But again, I think that more people really like the second gen, and I'm going to go with the second gen on this one. Next up, the 2007 through 11 EF versus a Thomas Lodestar. I think that one's a pretty easy one. I think the EF's going to win. An HDX versus an SBCV. This one could get pretty close. I think that there are a ton of people who really like SBCVs, but the HDX is just a more popular bus, mainly because it wasn't made for just 2 or 3 years. I don't know. This one could go either way. I think it's going to be pretty close, but I am going to put my money on the HDX. A Lion C versus a Bluebird 3800. I'm going to put my money on the 3800. An ICRE versus a Wayne Ford Busette. I'm going to go with the ICRE on that one. An 80ZR versus a TC 1000. I think that the ER would pretty easily win this. Let's see, a Minotaur with a unidentified chassis versus a Carpenter Counselor. Let's figure out that chassis real quick. 1, so we are going to have that on a GM chassis. Now, I think this is probably going to be the only Type A to advance. I'm going to put my money on the Minotaur just because the Counselor was a very weird Type D that was not a super common Type D. So I'm going to go with the Minotaur on this one. Working our way on the other side, we have a Collins, again with an unidentified chassis, versus a 95 to 06 EF. It's an even, so we're going to have that be a Ford Collins. Like I said, I think the Minotaur is the only Type A that's going to advance, so I'm going to put my money on the EF. An 03 to 07 ICFE versus an EC72. I think, again, I'm going to put my money on the EC72 on this one. The Green Power Beast versus a Thomas B700. B700 easily. A Wayne Ford B800 versus the C2. C2, duh. An ICAE versus a Bluebird CV200. I forgot that I put the AE on here. This one very well could advance into the 3rd round, but the CV200 was a pretty popular Bluebird as well. I think I'm going to go with the CV200 on this because the AE wasn't in production for that long and wasn't like extremely popular or anything. A TC versus a Bluebird B60, TC easily. A Bluebird T3RE versus a Wayne Dodge, T3RE all the way. A Super 2 versus a Bluebird Vision. I'm going to go with the Vision on this pretty easily. Now we're making our way into the 4th round. This is where things are really going to start to get interesting. A T3RE versus a Vision. I'm going to go with the T3RE on this one because some people, myself included, still don't like the new roof cap on the Vision. A TC2000 versus a CV200. This one, again, could tip either way. I'm not sure how this one is going to do. I think that with this one, I'm going to have to go with the TC2000 again. I just have a feeling that that one would win between the two. A C2 versus a Thomas B700. Pretty easy. I'm going to go with C2 on that one. And an EC72 versus a 95 to 06 EF. I'm not sure with this one again. The EF and the EC72 were both fairly easy wins, but now once you put these head to head, I feel like a lot of people really like the EC72 as a prototype, but more people are familiar and have been around EFs. But then again, this is an older style of EF and not the 07 to 11 that we have on the other side or an EFX. So call me crazy, but I'm going EC72 winning that one. Now we have the GM Minotaur versus a 80s ER. I'm going to go with the ER on that one. I think that would win pretty easily. The ICRE versus the Bluebird 3800. This one, again, could go either way. Between the two, I'm going to go with the RE. The HDX versus the EF. I feel like because the HDX is currently in production that one would win. And a 2nd gen CE versus a 90s All-American. Again, I think that one's going to win pretty easily. A 2nd gen CE versus an HDX. This is where things are going to get pretty hard. But again, I'm going to put my money on the 2nd gen CE. An ICRE versus an 80s ER. I really hate to knock out the ER, but I think I'm going to have to right here. The EC72 versus the C2. More people are familiar with the C2. More people have ridden the C2. More people have C2s in their district. I think that one is going to pretty easily win against the EC72. A TC2000 versus the T3RE. This is a hard one. Again, I think that the T3 has the advantage of it currently being in production. So just because of that alone, I'm going to put the T3. And we're just about done. The C2 versus the T3RE. I mean, I'm Safety Liner C2. It'd be pretty dumb of me to put the T3RE winning this one. So we'll put the C2 winning that. And now the ICRE versus the second gen CE. Again, I think the second gen CE is very, very easily going to win this one just because everyone knows that one. And now the last round, the C2 versus the second gen CE. This could go either way. But because I'm me, Safety Liner C2, I'm going to put the C2 winning this. Now, this is just mine. Obviously, yours can and I'm sure will look very different than mine. Maybe you had the CE winning it. Maybe you don't even have the C2 advancing as far as it did. So now that we filled out the spreadsheet, all we need to do is go to the form that I have linked down below, then put in your name, your email if I need to contact you for whatever reason, and then upload the picture or PDF so that I can see your results, and then you're entered. So yeah, this should be pretty interesting, pretty fun, seeing which bus will ultimately win at the end of the year. And it's especially going to be interesting seeing how many of these people get correct. Anyways, with that, that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I always do appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe right down here. It's a magical white button that says you are now subscribed to Safety Liner C2. Make sure you comment up here, down here, over here, or over here. I don't know where they put it down in here. They put it. Make sure you also give this video a thumbs up, or the StarCraft Dodge is somehow gonna win this all. And make sure you also share this video with a friend. Show it to your mom. Show it to your dad. Show it to a guy on a random street. I don't care. Don't let anything happen to you. So yeah, guys, that's gonna do it for this video. And thanks for watching.